Hi everyone, welcome to my review of John Ford's The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance in 1962. Here is the Blu-ray, and yes, of course, another John Ford film review. Now, of course, I recently rewatched and reviewed The Grapes of Wrath. For me, one of the finest films of all time. It got into my plus tiers. Tier 3. Of course, The Searchers. I gave it tier 1. I think that's in my top 100 at the moment. And yes, when I first saw, The Searchers and The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, it was back in 2017, February, and basically that was the first time I saw these two films. I saw them within roughly a week of each other, and at the time, for about a few days, I kind of struggled, with what I preferred. And then I came, eventually, a few days after the conclusion that I liked The Searchers a bit more, and but both of them, I thought were masterpieces. And yes, this film is a masterpiece. I'll get out of the way for me. Absolutely stunning film. Now this, of course, another John Ford. Now he, of course, this is one of his last films really that people call great. And really before that he had made great films in each decade. That he was kind of active. And not too much in the 60s. But this was, one of his, most popular films. Sometimes this is most popular, and I understand that. It's quite a lot of the time actually in the top 5 westerns of all time. People, place it. Again, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't actually say The Searchers is quite in the top 5, but it's in the top 10. This one, though, is also in the top 10 for me. That I've seen. Absolutely stunning. Basically, this character, Jimmy Stewart, of course, in the film, basically, who is in my top 3 actors of all time. Jimmy Stewart is an absolute legend. I think, he's just. Wow, what an actor. Always, really, really warm. Even in Vertigo, which is a very, very dark character that he plays. Quite twisted at times, and controlling. But he always brings like a warmth. Similar to, say, De Niro, when he plays, even dark characters, which is a lot of the time for De Niro, back in, his day, Raging Bull. He always brings this kind of warmth and, vulnerability to his performances. Jimmy Stewart does this as well, and in this film, this is another absolutely stunning performance from Jimmy Stewart. He plays Ransom Stoddard. Basically, the opening to this film, is just him arriving at this town, very small town, with his wife, played by Vera Miles. She plays Hallie in the film, and they arrive, and he's a senator, basically, to this town. There's loads of stuff built up in the first 10-15 minutes. You learn that they're attending a funeral of Tom Donovan, who, when you see the flashbacks, is played by John Wayne, another legend. And basically, you've got Pompey as well. This guy that, it's clear that he was, friends with them and stuff. And basically, they arrive at this funeral, and it's very, very emotional, even in the first 10-15 minutes. And then the rest of the film really is just telling to these reporters, basically, I think, and it's telling of the events that happened, involving Liberty Valance. He was this, criminal gunslinger, and basically terrorised this town with his kind of his gang, and one of them being again Lee Van Cleef, and a lot of minor characters that he played, really before the Dollars trilogy. But yes, basically a few dollars more, and basically. The film focuses on this, in this flashback, this town, very, very small town. It doesn't, really leave the town, apart from a couple of times. But Jimmy Stewart, his character is practicing shooting and stuff. And it's basically, Jimmy Stewart arrives, this is the beginning of the flashback, and you see him getting basically chucked out of the stagecoach, beaten up, he's back when he's a lawyer just, by Liberty Valance, and basically he's played by Lee Marvin, in the film. Now, he plays probably one of the greatest villains of all time, among them certainly in this film. Wow, what performance! A character that you love to hate, really. And then he gets, nursed up, you could say, and basically very, very quickly, he's in the company of Vera Miles, John Wayne, other characters, Peabody. There's all these different side characters that are in the town, and basically, he makes a stand, and it's about the rest of the film. It's about him preparing to kind of him and John Wayne as well in a way, preparing to kind of stand up to this character of Liberty, and basically it is a very, very kind of thought-provoking a western without a lot of gunplay really. The gunplay is mostly in the very kind of final act of the film. And even then, it's not, you know, a traditional shootout. You know, this film really is more of a drama, and it's a very, very different Western. You know, if it's not, you know, quite like The Searchers, even, and despite what some say, that really is a different Western as well. You know, it's not quite as traditional and kind of classical as it's made out to be. It's very, very different and dark and everything. And this is no exception, but you know, it's very, very, you know, certainly unique in John Ford's kind of filmography. You know, this film, it plays a lot with kind of, you know, you could say stereotypes and stuff, but really the traditional kind of roles, you know, and stuff, you know, different genders and everything. You know, Jimmy Stewart, you know, a lot of the time, and this is great because John Ford kind of making points here and kind of, you know, demystifying the West in a way, but not in a way that kind of takes away kind of from the kind of legendary film. But yes, Jimmy Stewart, you know, he's doing dishes in the film quite a lot of the time, you know, and he actually brings an apron to the duel. So that, you know, in itself, you know, there's kind of, you know, things that John Ford is trying to do here, kind of, yeah, make it more kind of, you know, about equality and stuff, and yeah, you don't have to be, you know, these kind of masculine heroes, you could say. And of course, John Wayne is in the film, who, you know, is known for, you know, all these roles before this. And John Wayne in this film, you know, he's basically this kind of love triangle, you could say, between him and Jimmy Stewart and Vera Miles. But John Wayne in this film, very, very different for him actually as well. Performance, and another absolutely masterful one that, you know, this and The Searchers actually, you know, they're fairly close in terms of his performance. I think he gives an absolutely stunning one here. His character is amazing, and basically, you know, the pairing of, you know, of Jimmy Stewart and John Wayne in this film is remarkable. It's just one of the most enjoyable pairings. You know, of course, before I'd seen this film, you know, of course, I loved Jimmy Stewart. I had seen some stuff with John Wayne, loved him as well. You know, I'd heard, of course, they're kind of together in this, and I thought, wow, that could be amazing. And it's directed by John Ford, and it turned out to be just one of my favourite films of all time. I think, you know, not quite in my top 100, like The Searchers probably is. And you know, if people ask me why I prefer The Searchers, you know, I think it is pretty close actually. I think, you know, some things are better in this probably. You know, I think, yeah, there is a couple of things better in this. Probably the script, you could say, and actually the kind of, you could say the acting at times as well is better. Although The Searchers has got great acting, you could say that. But for me, you know, this is very, very different. It's The Searchers is an adventure film. You know, it's kind of a, you know, rescue film. You could say it's an epic. You know, set over. This is, you could say it's an epic as well, but it's an epic set over quite a long time. You know, in the main bulk of the story, and I think just the pairing of you know, Marty, you know, and John Wayne's character in that film, it's just a bit more enjoyable for me personally. I think visually it's better. It's better music, all this kind of stuff. It just makes it a bit more of an enjoyable, and for me, you know, better shot film. Probably just as much emotion, you could say. You could argue this has got more emotion in it, but for me, you know, just personally for me, I think The Searchers is better. And so far, John Ford's best film. I don't see that changing. But yeah, basically, they are, you know, in their own ways, you know, very, very close at times. This film is absolutely remarkable. It is perfect for me. You know, I think it's got one of the best scripts ever. You know, it's got one of the greatest pairings of all time. You know, Jimmy Stewart, John Wayne. Lee Marvin is absolutely incredible as a villain. The thing that catches me as well, you know, is just, you know, even in the early kind of scenes, this really drew me in. It's got the kind of aura, the mystical feel about it. A mythic film, you know, even though it does demystify certain elements and kind of, yeah, it's kind of a comment, even you could say on some John Ford westerns, but western genre in general. But it has got this mythic feel, you know, very, very, very much so. And the music adds to that. You know, you just kind of this whole atmosphere that's set up in the first act of the film, and then, you know, you flash back, and it's just this wonderful, wonderful film, thoroughly human, very, very joyous. The comedy is amazing, of course. You know, Jimmy Stewart is amazing in this film. You know, really, really funny. Even these minor characters, like I say, like Peabody, add a lot of the comedy to the film. Never goes over the top at all. This film, the tone is perfect. I feel, you know, the cinematography once again, of course, perfect, absolutely flawless. John Ford, one of the best visual storytellers in cinema. You know, you've just got one of my favourite romances in a western as well. Vera Miles, you know, as always, is great in this film. Really, really loved her character. Very, very strong character. I loved her, you know, and the pairing. You know, this romance that forms is very, very natural and very, very meaningful. And I loved, you know, the side characters. Even, you know, Pompey as well. He was a great side character, one of my favourites. You also got these scenes where they kind of Jimmy Stewart kind of sets up this school, you know, even for the adults, and he teaches actually Hallie to kind of read and write, and that is just so uplifting and so kind of wonderful as well. You know, it kind of finds time for that, and it's just amazing. You know, this is a very, very contained western in the flashbacks, you know, which is the, you know, main bulk of the film. But then because of, you know, the way it does look back into the past, and it kind of has massive time jumps and everything, it does feel like an epic as well. And you know, you've got these, you know, other parts where, you know, they go to different locations, but it's mainly centered around this town. Very, very contained. You know, and kind of it's got this very, very much a warmth to it. But it also feels like a big epic, which is really amazing. It does this, you know, just you get to know really the whole town. And then of course you've got quite a lot of kind of, you know, scenes that aren't particular to a lot of westerns. You know, these kind of voting scenes and everything. And yeah, basically it really is a remarkable film. It has such a, you know, thought-provoking script as well. You know, it's absolutely brilliant characters across the board. I got invested in the entire film. Absolutely loved it from start to finish. It's actually a bit better this time. I've rewatched it because I've actually seen The Searchers 3 times now, and this is only the second time. And you know, I think I do think The Searchers is better for me. You know, I do think I prefer it. I can say that. And this one doesn't quite you know, get a tier 1. That's but yeah, it's not far off of that. You know, I think I'd have to give this film 100% plus tier 2. An absolute masterpiece. You know, it is just cinematic perfection for me. Wonderful, wonderful film. You know, it's a very, very emotional film. You know, it has this emotional undercurrent going throughout the entire picture. Of course, massively to do with the opening kind of setup. It kind of adds this weight to the film, and you know, the unique thing about this is, you know, kind of what has actually happened, how things have turned out. You know, at the beginning of the film, you know, the character of Tom is known to be dead. You know, there's the funeral for him. You know that the two of them are together, Jimmy Stewart, Vera Miles. You know quite a lot of things, and then it still, you know, retells this whole tale, and it's kind of about how it happens, and you know, just it's just such a complete film, you know, in that sense. But it doesn't, you know, it's quite bold to do that. You know, all of the kind of things you know that happen. It kind of makes it more powerful though in that way, because it's kind of like this, you know, in places tragic film. Very, very hopeful film though as well. What it says about the Western genre, and again, a film, you know, about family. Not quite as much as The Searchers, or particularly as well The Grapes of Wrath, but it is, you know, about family. Kind of plays with different roles as well within the kind of family and kind of units, you could say, and yeah, different stereotypes. It kind of comments on that, and yeah, basically, it's got one of my favourite romances in a western. Masterfully directed and shot. The editing is perfection. I think this is just such a meaningful western. Very, very emotional. The acting is superior. You could say it's better than the Searchers acting, you know, and maybe as well The Grapes of Wrath. But for me, I do prefer The Searchers. It has more energy. It's you know, more of an adventure. I think it is even better crafted. It has more of an enjoyable pairing, cast of characters, and kind of narrative. But this one, as I say, it's not miles off of The Searchers. I think it is a remarkable film, in my top 150, top 160 definitely. And I think if you've not seen this film, you know, check it out, because you probably won't be disappointed. You know, this film really is stunning. It's better than The Grapes of Wrath for me, which is no, you know, small feat. You know, that is an absolute masterpiece as well. But this film, you know, it's so good. You know, Jimmy Stewart, one of my favourite actors, top 3. He is perfect in this film. John Wayne, you know, he really gives a masterful performance. The subtlety, you know, of his character once again. The same as The Searchers, you could say as well. not as all meets the eye kind of thing. Despite what a lot of people say about John Wayne, the characters that he played, saying that he was always the same character and stuff like that. Not for me, definitely not. And the Searchers especially plays one of the greatest characters in cinema. Although, of course, he's despicable at times. His views and everything. That's not what cinema's about. He is a complex character. It doesn't make his views in the film the views of the actual film, if you know what I mean. And yes, basically, once again, this character, very, very complex. And as always, John Wayne, absolutely brilliant in this film. Vera Miles as well. Wow, she's wonderful in this film. And it's just such a wonderful film. So enjoyable, very, very warm, and without even much shootouts and everything, it's just absolutely thrilling film. What this does is just, it's wonderful. Really, really human film, and a western is full of this this power, emotion, this atmosphere. A mythic film, kind of this retelling of this legend, you could say, and it's absolutely perfect for me. And if you've not seen it, I would highly recommend it. It's one of my favourite films of all time, and not as good as The Searchers, but despite that, still one of the 10 best westerns for me, and just another absolute flawless masterpiece from John Ford. I've only seen 3 of his films, the 3 that I've reviewed on this channel now, and I can't wait to see any more of these. And this and The Searchers, it'd be hard to top them, definitely. Even The Grapes of Wrath, but I cannot wait. And John Ford is just such a good director, and this is an absolute masterpiece. In my plus tiers. And yes, nothing more to say other than watch the film if you get time, and let me know what you think in the comments. So yes, thanks for watching my review.